Hello, everyone. My name is Joshua Lorenz, pronouns are he, him. I am the board chair of Out on Film. Out on Film is celebrating our 38th annual film festival opening on Thursday, September 25th, and we will run for 11 nights through October 5th with our closing night films. We'll also continue to stream virtually for the next week online for those that are unable to join us in person or to catch encore screenings of various films. I am very excited to be here today with Deb, the director of the documentary Night in West Texas. This is I thought, a very profound and impactful documentary about a gay man in Texas who is found or is ultimately framed for the murder of a Catholic priest. And it's all about the fight for his justice for him and his freedom. Deb, thanks for taking the time to join us. As we kind of jump in, love to just hear a little bit about you to start.
Sure. Thank you so much. I would describe myself as an investigative filmmaker. I feel like I have teamed up with the Innocence Project. This is my second queer sort of true crime where I embed with the Innocence Project. My first film did that for years and years, called Southwest of Salem. This film, Night in West Texas, I did it again, and it was one of those cases where when I read the trial transcript, I was very disturbed, as you can see in the film. And I was also like, wow, here's an opportunity, I think, to tell not just, a queer story, but in a way, a little bit of a Western, a revisionist Western. I think a genre that is close to my heart, being a Texan. And, a sense of place was a really big part of, the storytelling.
Yeah, I kind of mentioned, I know we were talking a little bit before we actually started. Jim, our festival director, he saw this at Frameline. I missed it. I don't know why. I read the description of this film as we were putting our schedule together. I'm like, wow, that's really interesting. I didn't then realize that Jim had seen it at Frameline, but I watched it and immediately. I mean, I was so into it. Even my husband, he was just walking around the house, not really paying attention. But within like the first 5 minutes, he was like, "What are you watching?" And he was there. And he was with me, and both of us were just hooked on it from start to end. I know you kind of mentioned, being involved in the Innocence Project, but what ultimately, I mean, how did you come to know the story of James? And then ultimately, what was the deciding factor that inspired you to tell his story?
Yeah, thank you. Okay, so the Innocence Project, I was on the board of the Project after I did Southwest of Salem. So that story was for about four Latina lesbians who were indicted for the alleged gang rape of two little girls, and that film resulted in the exoneration. Those women had been behind bars, and that film resulted in the exoneration, four of them, because of the film. And so over the years of being on the board of the Innocence Project of Texas, but also just having these relationships, they would ask me, like, here's another case. And each one, because there's so many, each one was so dire and so just tragic, as you know. And I wasn't really going to do one, but this one presented several different sort of opportunities for me as a filmmaker. It was he at the time is the longest awaiting defendant or prospective exoneree. I mean, he received a 40-year sentence, 38 to be exact, and had spent 40 years of his life like fighting for this. And at that point, I just was like, enough's enough. And I did have a track record of exonerating, you know, these queer ladies. And I thought, well, if I can do it, I should freaking try. I mean, I certainly have the track record, like, give it a shot. The thing is about exoneration in Texas and many other states is you only get one bite at the apple. And it's really important for people to understand that this is not just, you go to an appeals process. If you lose your appeal and you file what's called a writ of habeas corpus, you get one only. And if you lose that, you're screwed. So these are not cases that you play around with. And it's really important that when we take them on with a real sense of sturdiness, and a real sense of like, okay, like all hands on deck. There's other things just as a filmmaker, as somebody who's in love like with genre, and it is a Western. It provided this really interesting point of view of a gay man in West Texas. West Texas is very sort of mythological in my mind because I grew up really being sort of in love with the sort of mythology of the frontier and understanding that if we could flip the sort of Western on its head, you have these really interesting and true stories about these forgotten folks in the American West. And I just thought it was, all the things that I think are really not just filmic, but homoerotic. Okay. So, like the oil fields, these like really sort of masculine places. And, and I just was like, wow, it's going to be fun to play with subtext. It'll be fun to play with genre. That's sort of the film side of it. Of course, the case side was the biggest and most kind of profound piece. And once we knew, wait, are people watching this after they see the film or before? Because I don't want to give anything away.
Yeah, I mean, some watch our Q&As before, some watch it after. So
Ouch.
yeah, be careful. Not too
Okay.
many spoilers. Although if
Okay.
you've not watched it yet, there might be a spoiler coming. So like, skip 2 minutes.
Yeah, I'll try to keep, but because of, you know, well, let's just say this. There were two sort of worlds in which I wanted to inhabit here. One is the sort of procedural case side, and the other side is, a really interesting revisionist Western style doc. And so I had these two worlds that I got to play with. And that was, it was really dreamy. And I'm not going to say anything else because if I keep talking, I'm going to spoil it.
No, like I said, I think it was beautifully done, and I do want to, just kind of going back to what you're talking about. I have watched enough, crime dramas that I am, somewhat familiar with, the habeas corpus. But for you as a filmmaker, because you really were in the trenches with this team, over the duration of this case. I mean, how does that, what does that impact on you as well as the lawyers that are involved?
It's so exhausting. So, innocence lawyers or innocence sort of as a jurisprudent exercise, and I'm not a lawyer, so I am a journalist. So, I would just want to distinguish that
Yeah.
I'm not going to talk, I talk about this more in terms of its social impact. Um, it's very trying. It's very thankless in the sense that like you're working against the massive grind. And one of the great lines that our innocence attorney says, this really dynamic, I call her the seventh hunting wife. Like she's just this like Texas like drawl from West Texas. She's just a fun, smart spitfire. And one of the things she says is, with innocence work, even though the burden is not to solve it, if you have an innocent defendant, it's kind of the truth. So we had the burden not just of this huge case, but like, could it be solved? Could we find the real killers of Father Ryan? And, we talk about sort of, we explore in the film all the ways in which Father Ryan didn't receive his,
Right.
due justice because of who he was. So, yeah, no, it's very trying. And it's also very unifying because we all have one really solid goal and we're never going to hurt the way James does, and we love this man and it's like all hands on deck all the time. And I think that's true for any first responders or anybody in these sort of service related like legal sort of worlds. Yeah.
I mean, and at the risk of giving something away, and I will say, this could be a spoiler. So anybody who's listening, you might want to skip ahead for a minute. You talk about the emotions that you get invested in, and I think you did a very good job of also portraying this. I'm curious, what were your emotions as the filmmaker when you heard the new, where I'm going, when you heard the news about James being in the hospital?
Oh yeah. Oh, that was really hard. There was a lot of
I
heart. I
felt
mean,
that pain. I was right there.
I I'm actually reliving it right now because I actually wasn't expecting you to ask me, but oh my God. I was really that was really upsetting. And not because I don't understand. I've been sober for almost 15 years now and I'm in the program. And I think it hit me like that. It hit me there, but it hit me in the part where, that feeling where you're like, we're so close. We're so
Right.
close. You could taste it. And this happened to you at the age of 23, and here you are at the age of 66, and we can almost see it. And this is the moment. And then, of course, like when you step back, you're like, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. of course this is the moment. This
Right.
moment could really go in any direction. So it was, yeah, the heartbreak. And I don't want to make it about us because it's not about us, but it hurt. It hurt many different ways. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I think it just goes to show, I mean, we say it hurt, right? I mean, I as the person watching it, it hurt me. Obviously it hurt, there was that emotion for you, but also to your point, I mean, that is just what James is going through because you're right, he was 23 years old. I mean, I know we hadn't mentioned it yet, but Father Ryan was murdered in it was 1981. Uh, James was convicted in 1983, and was it 2024 that he was exonerated.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I mean, 40 years of carrying the weight of a conviction. I mean, it just, it's no wonder that, that he was suffering. And but taking that from there, I mean, so, for those that haven't seen it yet, James he did survive. And but how is he doing today? Where is, I know he never really left the, I'm gonna call it compound, not the right word, but how is he doing now that he's had some time at freedom?
So he's in transitional housing still. That's the name. I want to tell you that he is thriving in New Mexico and is like living his best life, but I can't do that. I think we're seeing a very tough cycle.
Yeah.
And one thing that I feel like, and I've said this, I really, when your identity is so wrapped in something, especially something that's been 40 years of an identity, and that identity is an innocent, I'm going to fight. Who are you when that identity is taken from you?
Yeah.
Like, and it's not such a frivolous thing. Like, oh, now you have the resources because, the state pays him, or it's like, no, like, it's hard for me when I came out and I had the support. It's like, that feeling of who are you when your identity is now changed on its head. Where's your fight? Do you have one? Are you exhausted? It's like that collapse. So he as he had a stroke. He's now committed to a wheelchair. He's aging. It's a very hard cycle. And I want it to be different, but that's not up to me. And
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, I mean, the prime years of his life were stolen from him for, and it is so unfortunate now that he finally has freedom that, he can't go live his best life in the way that we all would hope. Um, has he seen the documentary?
He hasn't. And actually, as somebody who like does this honestly for a living, I don't think it's always a great idea. Like,
Yeah, I'm sure.
there's absolutely no reason. Like he was there. He knows I was there. I know what I knew. I know him so well. And I don't think there's a reason after all the trauma, if I'm being completely honest, for him to see those crime scene photos, which he's probably never seen. Or he may have, but it's been years. He certainly does not need to like revisit those difficult things. I think it's really critical to move on. He asked me to make the film knowing that I had a track record, and I was grateful that he chose me and we did it together, but I don't think he needs to see it, and it's not going to change anything for him to
Right.
see it.
Yeah, I mean that's such a good point. I mean, it is, we I don't think there's any reason to relive the trauma on a big screen. Um, at the end of the day, like you said, it just doesn't really help. Um, I mean, so now that this film is released, are you starting to look at what comes next?
Well, it's really interesting you ask. Again, this is a bit of a spoiler alert, but the um, in the film, you'll see that there was an era in the 80s where several priests seem to have been murdered under similar circumstances. And while making Night in West Texas, we did receive some really interesting information about these other cases. And so what we're making now is a part two, and it will explore several of those other set difficult murders of priests and who were likely gay and caught in very similar or found in very similar circumstances. And so we're just going to see where it takes us. Um, and I do have a lot of questions about it because there were quite a few. Um, So let's see where it goes. You know, that's the next. That's the next. Oh,
I'm already ready and willing to watch when that one comes around. I mean, so it sounds like you're very early in the project, just probably
yeah.
still in the investigation portion, really. Awesome.
Yes, yes. And we did receive information from an anonymous detective who had other really interesting information that we were like, oh, okay. So we're parsing through it. We're really trying to figure it out. And how are we going to tell it? Is it worth telling as a film? Is it worth doing something else? We don't know. We'll see. But, I'm proud of this film and I'm proud of how we helped James and, queer sort of true crime and queer revisionist Western, like this is the worlds in which I live. And so it's just it's very exciting that it seems to be sort of reaching an audience and I'm so pleased. I'm so grateful.
Awesome. I mean, kind of as we kind of get closer to wrapping up, I mean, is there any part of James's story that you didn't get to tell that you wish you did?
You know, James is a movie lover. And there's a little moment where you do see where he's watching a like westerns, and
Yeah.
westerns are big. They're really big for him. If we had more time and it was a different film, it would have been really fun to do sort of a meta kind of thing where we could really understand his sort of frame of reference. We talk about the impact of like westerns as a young Apache boy, right? And I don't want to give any of those away because it's such beautiful storytelling about this like young Apache gay boy and growing up with his father. I would have loved a little more like of that, but that's probably more inside baseball film geek crap that like only I would find really interesting. But yeah, no, it really like his favorite movie is One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest, and he feels very he that I don't know. I want to know more about that. We never got as into it as I wish we would have. We had other
Time to
things
pick.
on our plate.
I was gonna say, but now it's time. It might be time to pick a phone call and learn a bit more about James.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Well, Deb, thank you so much for taking the time today. Really appreciate it. Again, I love this film, Night in West Texas. I just thought it was so beautifully done. It was a great story. For those that coming to out on film, Night in West Texas is screening at Landmark Midtown Art Cinema on Sunday, October 5th at 12 p.m. Following that, the film will be available through our virtual catalog starting October 6th and running through October 12th. Deb, I wish you were able to come join us, but looking forward to your next documentary, and really appreciate you taking the time today.
Thank you so much. And thank you to everybody. I'm so grateful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Talk soon.
take care.